You're live. Okay. Well, I found this. I don't know if I'm going to have multiple parts of this video, but if I do this seasonally, then maybe, but it's not necessarily a topic that requires updates through the years like some of the other ones. And some of these things I've already kind of discussed in other videos. So here's my introductory disclaimer before I get into this other part, or the meat of the thing, I should say. Well, first, this video was not about capsule wardrobes per se, and it was actually a pretty short video, and hopefully mine won't be too much longer than that one, because my last video was pretty long and hardly anybody's watched it yet anyway. But this video and that video are not directly needed to be in conjunction with each other, because my previous one was about the Ivy style and the Preppy style and the student looks and that kind of thing. This is more applicable to anybody regardless of what type of style you choose. But again, it's based on a women's video, and women's clothing and men's clothing are different, as I always discuss, especially when it comes to the capsule thing, and I'll get into that a little bit more later. As far as the Ivy style thing, that did present a capsule on purpose. So if you do go back and watch that one, some of that will be explained in more detail, and I won't go into all of it here. But basically, my disagreement with the capsule is the literal approach more than the philosophical approach. Because if we want to take it from a philosophical angle, we're not saying you can only own 3 pairs of pants and they must coordinate with everything else. We're saying you can own, 3 styles of pants, and you can have X number of pants in each of those categories. So if you own jeans, you don't have to only own 1 pair of jeans. You can own, 3 or 4 different pairs of jeans from 3 or 4 different companies in 3 or 4 different colors, yada, 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 as that goes on. And you're still kind of in a capsule philosophy without being in a strict capsule. Okay. So this video today is along those lines, more of a capsule philosophy again, because as I said in the Ivy video, can you really get through a week with only 3 pairs of pants as a functioning adult? No. As a student, maybe. In a casual setting, yes, but then you might still have to have separate work clothes that don't fit that other casual capsule. Okay. And that's where some of the schism is going to come in with this video, why it's partly a rebuttal video. Even though, again, she was talking about women's clothes and men's clothes are different, and I'll get into that. Okay, so again, yeah, I have camp shirts. I don't only own 1 camp shirt. I own multiple types of camp shirts for multiple occasions and yada, yada. But I would put camp shirts as one category, and then dress shirts as another category, and then flannel shirts as another category, right? And I have more flannel shirts than I do camp shirts, but I still have more camp shirts than I do true dress shirts. Anyway, I have a lot of office casual shirts, maybe even more than I actually have flannel shirts. I don't know. I haven't counted them all. Lots and lots and lots. Okay. Anyway, which again, the minimalist would say that's far too many in each category and yada, yada, yada. And you can parse that out however you want. That's not, again, the full focus of what we're doing here. But the ultimate goal, again, was to, in her video, which again was not so specific as those other videos that I was rebutting, like how to be a prep, how to be a lumberjack, or whatever that kind of. Her, again, intent is just how to shop smarter and get pieces that you're going to resonate with and actually use, rather than just buying stuff hit or miss. Okay. So the 2 questions, I don't know, is this part 2 already? If we want it. This is a time-consuming way to do this, but since we're getting into the actual text of the thing, and again, like I said, well, I'm already at almost 5 minutes, but if this goes to 15 instead of 10, then I'll live with it, whether or not you skipped all of this already and you're not even hearing me now. Who knows? But the 2 questions was basically, do I shop for comfort or impact, was the first question. And the second question was, do I tend to shop for classic looks or trendy looks, or classics versus trends, right? And by taking these two things, you would get 4 results. So the first result would be if you buy for comfort and classic, then you are an effortlessly timeless dresser, and you choose quality over quantity, which again would typically lead to owning less stuff than I do, I guess, but I own stuff of varying qualities and use them at various times for various things. Okay. And then this will relate more to episode or category 3 than it does to category 2, but we're skipping. So we're kind of skipping around a little bit. But she put them in this order on purpose, so we're going in her order. So number 2 would be comfort and trends, which of course to me which she calls relaxed modern, but which to me mostly translates, at least in menswear more, especially maybe than all women's wear, as lazy slob, like jeans and a hoodie. That's your whole look. You don't care about anything else. You just want to be comfortable, and you just want to wear your comic book t-shirt or your sports teams or your, you know, whatever, workwear on a date, instead of elevating to effortlessly timeless with more classic pieces for a date on the town kind of night kind of thing. So to me, category 2 is like the worst of all worlds. Again, she was trying to pretty it up with nice words and telling these women that, you know, they look trendy and they look good, but this, she cautioned, is where you also fall a lot into the fast fashion trap. So I agree with her there that would be where that, although in number 4, again, you're talking trends again, which might be even a worse fast fashion trap, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. Okay, but so like I said, lazy slob, yeah. I mean, if you just wear jeans and t-shirts and that's all you wear, I don't even know why you're watching this video, right? Unless you're trying to break out of that finally into volume 1 or volume 3 or whatever category, sorry. But I mean, I do own cargo pants. I'm wearing cargo pants. They're not necessarily meant to go with this shirt. I just put on this shirt for this video, but because this is going to be a very polyester sweaty kind of shirt to try and wear doing other chores later. And this hat is not like a very dressy hat. I'm wearing it for this video because it goes with the shirt, right? Okay, that's, you know. So not all of those pieces are trendy pieces, but they are, again, mostly chosen for comfort. So it's not a perfect system. A lot of women were saying how they've switched to her system and they love her system and yada, yada. Like I said, I'll get into that a little bit more. But so skipping ahead to number 3, this would be if you are buying for impact rather than comfort, but you're buying more classic pieces. Now, obviously, this is largely where I like to think that I exist, but I still fall more into the comfort of part 1, mostly because of the weather. You know, if I could dress in a 3-piece tweed suit in July, maybe I would. Most of the time, don't know. We'll never find out because it's always going to be 102 degrees in July and I'm wearing cargo shorts and a camp shirt, right? Okay. So I'm kind of stuck in category 1, as I've complained about many videos that you can go back and watch. If you go to my cost per wear or whatever it's called playlist, there's a lot more content along these lines. And so in the previous video, in the Ivy style video 245 or whatever episode that was, he had talked about the Preppy's look, but he had also showed like pictures of Woody Allen, and I was critical of that because the Preppies and Woody Allen are slightly different. The Preppies would be more in the impact, this category number 3. It might be comfortable clothing, but you're still wearing it for emphasis. Whereas Woody Allen is more in the comfort category. He's not a trailblazer. He's he's out of step with what was fashionable at the time, and he's kind of the nerdy alternative. And I addressed that slightly in the previous video. And so yeah, he doesn't really want, he wants respect for his intellect, not his clothing. He doesn't really want attention, like, oh, great jacket, even though now people watch the video and go, oh wow, Woody Allen has all these great jackets. Well, but nobody at the time was complimenting him on his jackets. They all thought he was a weirdo, is the point of the character, But now, because of Downton Abbeys and other things, we're skipping back a couple generations, and instead of that being a weirdo wearing holdover vintage retro looks, that make them intentionally out of place, in a more negative way. Now it's intentionally maybe out of place slightly, but in a positive way. So, things have kind of gone full circle a little bit more from the 70s. And even the 80s, when especially tweed jackets weren't really, no popular movie character was hardly wearing any tweed jacket. It was all the bad guys, like in Back to School, the guy with the car and the flat cap and the tweed jacket was the nemesis, not the hero, right? And Animal House, of course, I mentioned. In Animal House, they don't really wear a lot of like tweed jackets, so it's the loser professor. He's kind of similar to the Woody Allen character, and he's the one wearing the tweed jacket. Donald Sutherland, of course, recently passed. So then we get to category number, but so she calls this the executive edge, though. And in women's clothing, it's your female politician, lawyer kind of look, LA Law with the big shoulder pads and all that kind of thing. A little bit more. Again, in menswear, not quite the same thing, because the preppy look would still fall partly in this category, not just the 80s power suit with the tie and all that. Although I suppose some people are doing kind of that retro look now, but when they do in the 80s retro, I don't think they're quite doing it unironically or whatever. If they're doing it to be kind of funny or whatever, more than serious. Whereas the business suit still exists, clearly. But again, that's in your profession, not in your private. So what you're doing for weekend wear is less likely to be impact and classics, unless you're going to some really fancy wedding or something. You're still probably falling in the number 1 or number 2 comfort level purchasing, because you're typically trying to be more comfortable on your downtime or your off time, if you have any. And so again, yeah, you're either getting elevated classics or you're just getting whatever to fill your closet and go out on the town. And again, I would say default to 1 more than 2 in terms of trends and disposable styles and things. But a lot of the men's videos I see literally are streetwear oriented, and they're literally only interested in comfort and trends. Or not exclusively. There's like one guy who likes thrift shopping and vintage finds a little bit more than another guy. And then there's, like I said, other videos that I watch where they talk a lot about how to achieve a particular style, but what their actual style is a little harder to nail down. But I would put them definitely closer to category 1 or category 3 most of the time. Or at least they want to be category 3 for these kind of videos, whereas I'm willing to be category 1, more often. Because again, the weather. I have videos where I'm wearing a tie and a better hat. When I first started this channel, I knew it was winter and I knew it couldn't last. So I was kind of like, well, I'll do it as often as I can for as long as I can, and then we'll see how it goes. So number 4 was impact and trends, which obviously, again, she had high praise for these people on a personal, like, you go girl kind of level. But on the other hand, like I said, this is your, as opposed to a lazy slob, this is kind of a busy slob potential, but again, very fast fashion accessible. that being your main pitfall apart from looking like a weirdo, a total weirdo, a boho, avant-garde, whatever. Basically, this category is mostly for rock stars and Instagram celebrities, you know, and again, students and young people who really want to, like, I am an artsy person before they have to get a real job and tone it down, I guess. But toning it down doesn't necessarily automatically put you back in category 3. In the business suit world, again, it can put you up in category number 2 a little bit more. Again, maybe a little bit less in the relaxed aspect of the modern and less of the lazy aspect of the modern, but still more trendy, but more conventional, I guess. So I felt like there was a missing segment of the male clothing kind of represented here, because I tried to match these up, like I said, with occupations or movie characters as well as I could, not just based on Woody Allen, but like I said, rock stars being close enough to their own category. Because they always show these movie stars, and the men fashion videos do this too. What movie stars are wearing? Well, most of the time, movie stars aren't dressing up in the morning because they know they're going to a set to put on a costume. They're going to be in a costume all day. You're seeing them on their lunch, having their smoke break or whatever, and you're seeing them getting out of their car with their hair undone. And of course, because their job is not your job. They're not getting to get dressed to go to an office or even a warehouse. They're getting dressed up to go to a place where they, most of the time, take off all those clothes immediately and put on something entirely different. Okay. So when they keep saying, this guy from the TV Bear show is the best casual dresser ever, that's because you're not seeing him most of the time in anything he would hopefully wear out on a date. Again, I hope when he goes out on the weekend, he's not in comfort and trend zone. I hope he's more in elevated impact zone. Okay. I hope. I don't know anything about the dude except for that I've seen lots of pictures of him in a white t-shirt, which is what his character wears. So, and the one thing I know is when they did Wayne's World, there was one video where Mike Myers talks about his jeans being his actual jeans that he brought from home. And that was kind of funny that his costume was his actual jeans. But by then he was already wealthy enough to own other pants that aren't jeans, okay? Because, yeah, by the time Wayne's World came out, he had already been on Saturday Night Live for plenty of seasons, and I don't know how rich they get doing that, but well enough you can afford to live in Manhattan, right? Okay. So when I looked at, like I said, a couple of them, I looked at the Preppy thing and the Woody Allen thing, and then I thought, well, what about the indie thing? Where would we put indie? Well, indie is in, obviously, comfort and classics for his leather jacket, his khaki shirt, his army pants, his boots. But then he's not really in impact and classics so much when he's in his three-piece suit, because that's a tweed suit, not a business suit. But he does have other suits that he wears around town in the end of the movie and with the other hat that are a little more impact. So he's not completely clueless when it comes to style. He just prefers these rugged clothes when he's doing adventure-y stuff. Those were kind of the trends of the day, but I don't want to put his tweed outfits in the comfort and trend section because, again, it's a suit. But it's maybe a comfortable-ish suit, again, the conventions of the day, more than an impact suit. So would that be considered impact and trendy for the day or comfort and trendy for the day? I don't really know. But certainly today we would see that tweed suit, again, through the cycles of the Downton Abbeys and the Woody Allens and everything. We've come to consider that formal wear, not casual wear, even though that just technically is work attire. It's still borderline casual attire because it comes out of hunting traditions, not business traditions. So there's maybe a 2.5 category in here somewhere where tweed suits belong for a contemporary audience that isn't quite avant-garde and boho, but it isn't trendy in the normal trendy sense. And it certainly isn't considered comfortable, again, in all the usual sense, because if it's over 80 degrees, I'm not wearing a tweed suit. The weather being, again, the main motivator for much of our. But again, Indiana Jones, he doesn't wear jeans and a hoodie because he's slightly I mean, hoodie shirts pretty much already existed in the 40s, but they were definitely strictly athletic wear at that time. You know, if you were in the military, you would have had a sweatshirt and that kind of thing. But if you were a civilian, less likely before the 60s. I think they really came into popularity a lot more in the 60s because regular sweaters would have been the preppy default, not the sweatshirts, like I said in the previous video. So yeah, Indy in his field outfit I put for casual comfort and classic. Number 2, jeans and a hoodie. I didn't ascribe that to any particular movie star. But then 3 was the closest I came to Indy with his classroom outfits. Again, and then oops, default to maybe category 2, hard to say. And then 4 was Rockstar. And then there was also another video I was watching about boots and things, and I'll tag that on here since we're almost wrapping it up, a little bit over time, but not terrible. He was saying like how he wants a pair of leather boots to last 15 years. And even if I buy one pair of boots and wear them every single day, I don't expect them to last 10 years. Boot leather and other leather might get better looking with age in a subjective kind of way, but it won't age better overall from when it's new. Yeah, it breaks into conform to your foot and that kind of thing a little bit. So there's kind of a sweet spot between when it's super uncomfortable-ish and falling apart, you know, however long that window lasts before it's actually falling apart more than you want to admit, which is where I think this young man is headed. Because I've definitely had shoes where I put them aside for a few months, and that was some of the videos I did earlier in the channel when I talked about some of the boots that I didn't really have to show on camera anymore, where I'd go back after a few months or a year or whatever and go to wear them again and be like, oh my, no, I'm not putting my foot in that again, even if it does fit. It's, you know, I'll give it to the thrift store and they might throw it away, you know, before any customer even has the chance to decide whether it's wearable or not. So that's not quite part 3. So anyway, so I hope that helps to some degree without, you know, moralizing too much or getting into, you know, you should only own 3 types of this shirt and only own 2 pairs of jeans and 1 pair of khaki, you know, like I'm never going to be that guy. I want to pare down. I want to get rid of stuff that I don't use. I agree with that. You know, less decision fatigue, more closet space. Great. But I also don't agree with getting rid of all your winter stuff just because it's June and buying all new winter stuff next year at higher prices for lower quality if you already have plenty of decent winter stuff that's going to last you another 2 or 3 years, etc., etc. Okay. And this being autumn, you know, almost in what, 10 more days or something. It's still technically summer, but everybody's kind of doing their autumn shopping or thinking about back to school or that kind of thing. And so if you haven't done that yet and you're just seeing this video, hopefully that helps. If you've already done that, then I don't know, winter's another season and maybe you need different stuff for that too. Like I often do. And I have videos where I talk about that. So the previous video was about my autumn reset style choices, which I typically try to change things up a little bit once a month, but some things need to change more than others. Like I said, obviously from June to September, I'm not doing very much drastic change. We might get a little bump of rain here or a little dip in temperature there, but for the most part, it's warm and don't know when autumn will come. It might come sooner than later this year. Don't know, but last year was definitely brutal and it stayed hot until well after Thanksgiving or right around Thanksgiving. So that's all I know. So yeah, I don't have, like I said, you know, like I said, I have plenty of video where I talk about all these things in deeper and I don't want this to go on forever. But if you do have any questions, please leave them in the comments, and I'll either try and refer you to the previous video, or I'll try and give you a tolerable, coherent answer or whatever. And so far, there hasn't been any real questions. Every now and then somebody tells me what they like to buy and, that kind of thing. But again, I didn't do anything terribly brand specific here either. I have talked about, when I do like the flannel shirt videos and things, specific brands I gravitate to, but I don't endorse any like one brand over another, because usually they have different characteristics. So even 2 flannel shirts, I might say this one's my favorite one, but then the next month, this one's my favorite one. Why? Because this one's heavier than that one. That's, and I want a heavier, thicker flannel in January than I do in December. That's usually the main distinction. And some companies offer multiple weights of flannel shirts, and then I buy more from that company because this other company only has them in lightweight or whatever. So again, effortlessly timeless. Yeah, that's kind of, like I said, my main category most of the time for that specific reason. So that should answer that question pretty easily, where, like I said, where I mostly shop by default. So how you manage your own personal style and yada, yada, yada. Like I said, again, this was way back in the early videos, in the first couple of videos, where I talk about, I'm making this longer on purpose now to add this also. So in case you didn't see the other videos, for men, like the uniform thing is kind of tied to, but not exactly the capsule thing, but a little bit sort of, if you're in the Army, you know what you're wearing. You have the dress uniform, then you have the middle range casual dress uniform, then you have your BDUs, and so, for each specific event, you have to either wear this or this or this most of the time, and most of us, we hover in, the BDUs or the light dress outfit kind of thing. Yada, 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 yada. But that also lends itself well to color schemes, which again, she went into it slightly, but not over the top as much as some of the other videos. So that's another thing, are you going gray? Are you going brown? Are you going blue? Or even green, or khaki, blah, blah, blah. Not going to get into that here, like I said, but at the beginning, like I said, you might want 3 pairs of pants, and blue, khaki, and gray. And that gives you more options than 1 pair of khaki pants-ish. But a pair of blue pants, most people see as more limiting than a pair of tan pants for some reason. So, take that all into consideration. Whereas I personally don't think gray is quite as versatile as tan, but I also think tan is more casual looking than gray, blah, 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 blah. So, okay, so not to belabor the point, and this is really going on much longer than I thought, but that's life. If you really like my videos, you'll love it anyway. So, all right.